All right, well, welcome to Portland Amateur Radio Club's monthly presentation. And for the month of September, we have Mike Ritz. He's going to give us an introduction to the N1MM contest logging software. Mike is the director for the Northwestern Division of ARRL, and I really want to thank Mike in advance for taking time out of his schedule to give us this great presentation.
This is my QRZ page. If anybody wants to know who I am, some of you guys are maybe new. I've been licensed for quite a while, since 1974, and a very active ham. And there is one of my main radio stations. I have a contest radio station that I do, and I invite new hams over. I'm up here in the Scappoose, Oregon area, about 25 miles northwest of Portland. And once contest season goes up, I'd like to, welcome anybody that likes to come and learn about contesting to come by the station. Hopefully we'll be COVID free by the time contest station rolls around. But I also am into some of the older gear. And so I've got also a boat anchor station that I operate. And we do a lot of contests here. And of course, the big thing is it's fun contesting. It's not the high pressure. We don't win a lot of awards. Well, we do win a lot of awards, but that's not the main goal. Main goal is to have fun. So anyway, let me do a new share now. Anyway, so what we're talking about here is N1MM, which is a very popular logging software. It's a logging software that I use here at Radio Scappoose. So what is N1MM? What we're talking about is the latest version of N1MM Plus. Well, it's not a general logging software. If you want a general logging software, I recommend the N3FPGA or several other ones that are out there. But this is for basically doing radio contesting. Back in the old days, and I'm sure some of you guys that were around before I was, and certainly during my tenure in contesting. Remember back in the old days when you had to do dupe sheets and hand logging, right? So you'd work 1,000 people in a weekend and have about 50 sheets of paper there all over the place trying to figure out if you worked a guy before. Well, that's not the way it is now. Of course, it's all done by computers, and N1MM is probably one of the most popular contest logging softwares. What does it cost? Well, the good news is, hey, hams are cheap and it's free. It's put together by a bunch of guys. It's open source, and they got a pretty good team that works on this thing. And these guys, this team that N1MM does this for the good of amateur radio, and they fully support it. They have new updates that come out I believe it's every Tuesday. And like I said, you can't beat free. And this is, as I mentioned, N1MM Plus, which replaced the original N1MM and the original N1MM. So you've got an old computer that's got the Unplus version on it, no longer supported, and you should update to the latest version of N1MM Plus. Here's the N1MM development team, NA3M, Steve N2IC, Pete N4ZR, Thomas PA1M, and of course Tom N1MM, the founder and the main guy on there. And they've really got a much larger development team than this currently is. Probably 15 guys that are continually making updates and development work on this software, and it's very, very stable. It's really a good software package. How good is it? Well, this is kind of old. This is actually from 2015. And you'll notice here that of all the software packages, N1MM, it was by far the #1 that's used in the CQ Worldwide contest. Well ahead of WinTest, TR4W, CT-Test, even WriteLog. A lot of the real serious guys use WriteLog because that's what they've always used, but just about everybody now has pretty much standardized on N1MM. What are the requirements to run N1MM? Well, if you have a TRS-80 with a cassette drive and the external keyboard, it's just probably not going to work. Or even an IBM PC with 256K of RAM and a couple of 5 megabyte drives. Well, that's probably not going to work either. What you really need is a computer, either a laptop or a desktop with a 1.6 gigahertz single core, or a dual core, at least a minimum of dual core with at least 2 gigabytes of RAM, not terribly involved. But sorry, Apple users, if you have an Apple, you're going to have to use a Windows emulator program to run it. I know a few guys that have been able to do that. If you're using the program of MTTY, which I'm going to talk about for doing RIDI, you can do RIDI contesting with this software. The requirements go way up. because it winds up becoming kind of a resource hog. Recommended a dual core minimum PC with at least 4 gigabytes of RAM. For home use, I use a desktop with at least a 19-inch monitor, and I would use what I actually use for my station. If you look at the picture, I use a pair of monitors at each station. And the reason is because there's a lot of these little windows you can bring up, and the more windows you can bring up, the more information you're going to have, the better it's going to be to do your contesting. So I would try to get the biggest monitor or 2 smaller monitors to be able so you can see all the different windows that you need. The Windows 7 or later is supported. It ended the support for Windows XP long after Microsoft did, but they stopped supporting it in January of this year. It's best with an internet connection. You'll find out why, but it's not required. And by the way, it's a great software package for field day. It's what I use for field day here, and many clubs throughout the U.S. Use this program for field day. You can network computers radios and computers together, and have one single log for many stations. So pretty active. For your laptops and desktops, you are required to have some serial ports. You need to have, I like to get ones I get, I have 3 of these laptops, or not that, but desktops in my shack. And one is used for a PAN adapter, SDR PAN adapter to look at spectrum. And the other ones are used for the logging computers. They require at least 5 serial ports for radio frequency and band communications. If you're operating CW, there's a little package called a WinKeyer that you can use to have your CW all be computer controlled. A signal link if you're running RTTY, doing a RTTY contest, and of course your mouse and keyboard. Some of the features, well, it's pretty much self-upgrading. Every time you load the program, it goes out and checks and see if there's another version available. If there is, it will tell you, and you can go ahead and pretty much you can upgrade. So it doesn't, unlike Windows, it doesn't stop what you're doing and say, oh, you better upgrade. No, it gives you the chance ahead of time. All the major and many of the minor contests are supported, and I mean there's more and more going in there all the time. Full support for single sideband CW and digital contestings, and also the WSJT, the Joe Taylor FT contests. Pretty seamless multi-operator, multi-station support. Like I say, you can have so that the same log is used by multiple stations in a large contesting operation. It also handles the VHF and up contest. You can operate in de-expedition mode where you stay and run or search and pounce. You can either use the external or computer sound card for doing digital voice keying. So you can actually have if you have a digital voice recorder, you can actually record on your computer or use a voice synthesizer in your radio and have it automatically do your calling CQ or even your exchanges for you. Automatic CW generation, either through the LPT port or via USB to serial converter. You can even do a rotator control, which I've never used, using N1MM rotor program. You can also available a gray line map window to look at where the gray line is on the world, and 2 VFO support when using one radio with 1 VFO per band map, so you can run a essentially SO2R support. You can also, of course, handle the telnet clusters, and it automatically updates all the band mats from a telnet if you're connected to the internet. And all you new hams, this is going to go right over your head, but I think once we get into it, you're going to understand it a little bit more. There's, of course, WinKeyer support using a serial CW keyer designed and supported by K1EL. You can also, for every station you load in to work, it'll automatically give you the beam heading and its sunrise sunset calculations. So you can tell if he's within the gray line or not, or tell you if maybe you should, if you want to try to get him, maybe you need to go long path rather than short path. So it automatically tells you where you need to be. And if you've got the rotator control, from what I understand, it'll automatically point the rotator at the station. So very kind of neat. If you have a contest, for example, the WPX contest where you use serial numbers as the exchange, it'll automatically increment the serial numbers for you. on both transmit. Every time you transmit, you work a station, it'll automatically increment the serial number to the next one, even in CW contests, and provides pretty much for automatic contesting. Like I said, long gone are the Duke sheets and the logs that we used to have to do. How do you download it? Well, you download from a website of http n1mm.hamdocs.com. And there's a little thing you can point here. It says to download the full install. Download full install. It'll go ahead and install it for you. Once you bring the software up, and we're gonna actually run a little live demonstration of the software here when we get done. The first thing you got to do is load in your station information, which are basically your call sign, your name, your country, your grid square. So if you can figure out what your grid square is. Your latitude and longitude, if you know that, that's kind of handy to have. Your ARRL section, we are in the Oregon section here in the Portland area. If you're in the Vancouver, you're in Western Washington section. I know you probably have a lot of maybe some Vancouver members in the Portland club, since it kind of straddles the border. Your CQ zone and ITU zone, we're in CQ zone 3. And ITU zone 6. And the important reason for doing this is a lot of the exchanges, you'll have to give out, for example, in the CQ contest, you'll have to give them what your CQ zone. Well, it already knows your CQ zone 3, so it'll give everybody a 3. And count everybody else as a multiplier. And same thing with ARRL section. If the exchange, for example, on field day is your ARRL section, it'll automatically load the ARRL section in there. So it makes it pretty seamless. The next thing you have to do is set up the radio interface. Basically, you have to figure out which COM port you're using for your radio RS-232 communications. There's a little pull-down menu you can click on here that brings up basically every radio that's got CAT control built into it. And I also recommend that you set your default values to whatever they are in here. They've done a lot of research on each of these radios, and they've tried them as they wrote the software. And I found that the default values pretty much always work the best. But if for some reason it doesn't work, you can always try something else. The telnet connection ties to the internet. It basically is pulling stations in that have been worked by other people that spot these stations. If you guys are well aware of the spotting network, every time you work somebody in a contest, there's generally somebody that's out there, and they put that call sign and the frequency they're operating out for the rest of the world to see. And what the software does is it pulls that information in here and gives it to you in the form of a band map. And in order to do that and have that work, you have to tie the software to the internet. And it does that through a program here called Telnet. It does require an internet connection, and it's really a resource hog unless you limit the number of spots, because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these spots coming in from all over the world. And some of them in a contest, you're not interested in ones that are not in the mode you're trying to operate, whether it's a CW or a phone contest. And you only want to see, for example, if it's a phone contest, you really only want to see the phone spots, and you only want to see the phone spots on the bands that are contest bands, like 80 meters, 40 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters. You don't care about 17 meters. You don't care about 12 meters. You don't care about 2 meters. So you can actually go in and limit those by setting up what are called filters. You have to pick a cluster site. The one nearest here to us in Portland is K7AR. You stick your call sign over here, hit the connect button, and next thing you know, poof, you're there, and it actually starts giving you all these what are called skimmer spots. And once you get this, anything that's here will automatically get loaded into the band map, and we'll show you the band map in a little bit. So how do you filter the spots? Well, you click on filters, and the first thing you want to do is set your DX spot timeout. Default is 60 minutes. That's a long time. I can't think of many times, unless it's a really big station, where they're going to be on the air, not moving around for an hour. So I like to change this to about 30 minutes at the most. And if the spots go away, they go away. If I haven't worked them in half an hour, then I can, if somebody else spots them, it'll reload it again. But 60 minutes is a long time, but that's what it sets as default. I generally have it show me non-workable spots. It'll show you spots that you can work. For example, new multipliers and new stations. if you're working a DX contest where you're only allowed to work DX, it will not spot stations that have US call signs automatically. It'll determine what those are. And but sometimes you want to know that they're there. For example, another non-workable station is one you've already worked. You don't want to work the same station twice. So it has the ability to show you the non-workable spots, which are also the stations you've already worked. And it makes it easier for you to tell that you've already worked a station. And filter by prefix. If you do K or by North America, K is US, so it'll only filter spots that are coming from US station. When you're looking at a band map, and we're going to see what those look like in a little bit, you don't care about what somebody in Russia is hearing, or somebody in Japan is hearing, or somebody in South America is hearing. You're interested in what people are hearing in the United States. And those are the most useful spots, and putting spots in there that are coming out of Russia, that a Russian station is working a guy in Germany, does you absolutely no good except take up space in your band map. So definitely go through and when you're setting up your spot filtering, make sure you click on that you only want from either North America, which is essentially Canada and US, or K, which is essentially just the US. I usually click on NA here. Also select your bands and modes that you want to have. For example, when you're operating contests, for example, a CQ contest or even one of the ARRL contests, you typically only want 160 meters, 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. Those are all the HF bands, and you want to make sure nothing else is clicked. Make sure you've clicked on the modes. If it's a CW contest, make sure you've got CW clicked. That way your computer is not going to be getting clogged up with phone spots and RIDI spots and digital spots. Or you can also set per contest. The software knows if you're operating a CW contest, if you click on contest, it'll only give you CW spots in that contest and not give you a bunch of phone spots. There's two different ways you can do it. If you want to operate a CW contest, you can use a little device called the WinKeyer, as I mentioned, it's available from K1EL. And in order to do that, you have to tell it to plug it into the COM port. It's a little black box. It's about that big and about that tall. And it does all the CW key and memory stuff for you. You want to plug it into a COM port and tell it that that's a CW one, and have it go in and hit set. Bring up on that COM3. It'll tell you that's WinKeyer. Click OK, and you're done. And you've got the WinKeyer going. As I mentioned, the WinKeyer is available either built, and he used to make them as a kit. I don't know if he makes them as a kit anymore or not, but they're at k1el.tripod.com. It plugs into a USB port on your computer. You plug your paddle into it. A USB cable goes to key the input of the radio, and it's pretty darn simple to use. You set the WinKeyer's port number from the hardware configuration menu. You need to set the WinKeyer option, and on some older computers pre-Windows 10, you may have to load a software driver, but it does use the FTDI USB chipset, and that's built into Windows 10. Now for RIDI, if you're doing a RIDI contest, radio teletype, it uses a separate software called MTTY. However, it's not included as part of the N1MM package. You actually got to go in and download it yourself. But it is a freeware program. It's available through hamsoft.ca on the website shown here. You can so if you download it, you can put it into a new folder called MTTY, and all you need to do is tell with it where it says MTTY path, there is tell it where you've got it stored on your computer, and it'll automatically find it. Typically, you're using a sound card, whether it be a WinKeyer or some other external sound card. And you have to load that what you're doing on the for the sound card under where it says digital mode. So it's configuration, digital modes, set up your sound card, and tell it where to find the MTTY software for running RIDI. So let's work a contest. Well, first thing you need to do is update the N1MM software. This is automatic once you've opened the software to come up and tell you that it'll either tell you your software is too old, you need to update it, or it'll say there's a new version available. Do you want to update it? And then you automatically updates it, and then it brings you back again, and you're done. There's a couple of things that you should always check every time you download this software. where it says here, download and install the latest SuperCheck partial file. Go ahead and click on that. We're going to talk about what that is in a little bit, but you want to click up, check that. It's very important to upload the latest country file where it says download and install latest country file. The software knows automatically where some special call signs, and there's a guy that keeps all this stuff, this WLCity.dat data. And this is comes off an external website loaded into the N1MM software. And for example, it knows if there's a special station out there that's in a certain zone, guys with a special call sign, the software will automatically know where it is, what it is, and what country it is. And it makes it a heck of a lot easier when you're contesting if that brings that station information up automatically. And so by having the latest country file loaded into the software, it's like another database that it has to access. The SuperCheck partial is when you start loading a call sign. For example, let's say you hear a call sign, but you really only hear maybe the first 3 or 4 characters, and you can't quite figure out if that's a Z or some other letter that he's got in the end. You can actually load the other letters in there, and it will give you the options of known stations that have worked other contests in other people that are part of this master database of people who've operated contests. And it'll automatically tell you what those options are. And a lot of times you'll be able to actually pick the call sign up, even though you may not have gotten it all. You'll be able to guess what it is because it'll be the only call sign that's an actual contest, known contest station call sign. So these are all things that are very important to help you when you're trying to operate a contest. Now select your contest. So you want to go down here and click on, go to File and click on New Login Database. And for example, we're going to pick the ARRL DXCW contest here. We're going to enter our operator type. We're going to be a single op. We're going to operate all bands, and you pull these little pull down menus here. We're going to operate high power. It's a CW contest, so it's already going to know that. There's overlays for some of the C2Q contests, and you can pick those out if you want. We're going to be decide we're going to be a fixed station, not a mobile. Some of them have options for whether you're fixed or mobile. You can either operate assisted or unassisted, and the difference between assisted and unassisted, if you're not using any kind of external spotting network to figure out where stations are using the band map, you can operate unassisted. If you're assisted, you're actually getting those spots in where you can find people to work rather than tuning the VFO. You can find them loaded up in the band map. So I operate sometimes assisted, sometimes unassisted, depending on the contest. If you're operating multi-station, you have to tell how many transmitters you can run. If you're operating a single op, you only want to load up just one transmitter here. And then check your send exchange and make sure it's right. Because if you've loaded the correct information in the configuration, it'll automatically know what this is. And for example, in the ARRL DXCW contest, it automatically knows the correct send exchanges. I'm in the Oregon section. If you're in Vancouver, it would show you the Western Washington or WWA section. And if you're operating multi-op, you can actually load all the call signs of all the other operators in here. But most of the time, it's just going to be your call sign that appears in there. Then you go down here and click OK. And the next thing you want to do is you want to set up what are called these function buttons. And these are very, very important for operating contests. One thing that's kind of handy to have is if you right click in this blue area, you actually have the option to turn on a little GMT clock. I've got my Windows 10 down here in the corner to show me what the GMT time is, but you can also have a GMT time clock that's synced to your computer right up here in the corner. That always makes it kind of handy. I would pretty much use the defaults up here, or they're pretty easy to customize for each contest. Works in either phone, CW, or RIDI. It's pretty automatic as far as working that. You can actually have different messages that it can send out for both search and pounce. Search and pounce is when you're tuning the VFO, trying to find stations to work in a contest, and versus the run mode, which are when you're sitting in one spot and you're calling CQ and you're not moving anywhere, you're having everybody come to you. So in search and pounce, you're out trying to find stations to work. And in run mode, you're just sitting in one place calling CQ and people are coming back to you. For phone to have phone message, have it, for example, automatically send out phone messages, you need to have the .wav files pre-recorded using some software like Audacity. Or what I use is I've got a Yaesu FT2000, and I use the cat commands in the radio. So I send the radio command to send one of the pre-recorded messages, one of 4. And to access those, you click on any of the F buttons and edit away. Examples of these, and then once you click on here, it'll show you here what the messages are. For example, in the CW mode, run messages, or if you push the F1 button, it'll say CQ, and it'll give out your call sign twice. You can edit this all you want. And once you've tried and played with this a little bit, it becomes pretty easy to figure out how to program it. For example, in the CQ contest or in the ARRL contest, one of the parts of the exchange is from the other stations how much power they're running. You may have a question of, well, I missed how much power you're running. How much power you're running? So in the CW contest, you hit the F9, and it'll automatically send the message PWR question mark PWR question mark. What is your power? The guy can come back with his answer. Or what is your call? I didn't get your whole call. Or I didn't get your exchange. So you can have him send your exchange. This is to send your exchange, or you can ask him to send his exchange again. So pretty seamless functionality. Same thing with phone. Here you're dealing with WAV files. What I do is I use the cat commands that are from my FT2000, which are in the manual, and I have 4 buttons that I use. I can call CQ. So if every time I hit F1 in a contest, it'll automatically key my transmitter and starts calling CQ. If I work somebody, and if it's not a serial number exchange, I can actually have it give the exchange your 59 Oregon. If I just want to throw my call sign out there to try to get somebody and I get tired and I don't want to keep calling saying W7BO, W7BO, I can have it give my call sign or just call QRZ. So, is anybody out there? So there's a couple of cat commands that I pulled out of the manual, and I've loaded those into the software. And now every time I click these buttons, it makes the computer go in and put these voice messages out. In RTTY, it can get a little more complicated because you have to do one extra step, and that's to turn for every command, you need to send it a command to turn the transmit on. And when you're done, you have to tell it to stop transmitting. So again, go back to receive mode. And that's kind of a quirk of MTTY. So every time you see one of these messages for RTTY, it will show you that for example, to say thank you, it would transmit enter TUDE my call W7BO QRZ. So if you're working somebody and running, at the end of the exchange, you're going to say thank you, DE my call QRZ. Who's next out there to work? And then it goes back into receive. And you can customize these for individual and save them for individual contests, or you can leave them alone and until you get used to it and have fun. But I generally have these set up individually for every single contest. So I've got special ones for the ARRL contest. I've got special ones for the WPX contest and special ones for the RTTY contest. Let's take a look at some of, I mentioned that there's a lot of windows that you can bring up when you're operating a contest, and there's a whole bunch of these things available. Molten queue, there's the band map we're going to talk about. There's a check one. There's your actual log that you have to keep, right? Your log. What multipliers are available. You can bring up a score summary to show you how many points and how many multipliers you've worked. What's going on with the telnet. What you can bring up a gray line window, and there's a ton of these things, and it's really hard to fit it all on one. Especially there's no way if you've got a 14-inch laptop, you're going to be able to put more than just a few of these on there. But there are quite a few of these that you can actually get information on. I bring up the band map. This is a very important one, especially if you're running assisted. You notice this is for 15 meters, and these are telnet spots that have been brought into the computer automatically. And if you, for example, say, and you can tell by the color of these spots, by the way, whether these are stations that are new multipliers. If it's a CQ contest, you have not only zone but country multipliers. So it could be a double multiplier, and it gives you these in green. If it's or if it's a workable station but not a new multiplier, I'll actually put these in blue. So what you want to do is try to work as many of these green ones as you can, then switch, which are double mults, then switch to the red ones, which are single multipliers, and then finally the blue ones, which are the work stations that are not new multipliers, but you should work them anyway. It also gives you the beam heading. For example, in this case, at 2015, 21.015 is LZ3ZZ. I believe that's Liechtenstein, if I'm not mistaken. It's a 51-degree heading, and this is a new spot. And there are a bunch of remote receivers out there that are listening for CW signals and people calling CQ. It'll automatically find those from all over the world. These are essentially robots that are out there that are picking up CW stations, and it throws the call signs for those onto the World Wide Web, and those are being picked up by the N1MM software. So every time you see what's called a skimmer spot, they'll have a little pound sign after them. But be careful about skimmer spots because, or actually any of the spots, is always verify that the station that you're seeing spotted here, that's his real call sign. I can't tell you how many times you click on one of these and you find out that it's either not the station you think it is, or that somebody's got a busted call, or the skimmer got the call sign incorrect. So really be careful of these, of anything you see here on the band map. And by the way, the beam headings are automatic based on your QTH. That's why you needed to load your latitude and longitude in there if you knew it, or at least your grid square. The color of the spot, as I mentioned, the red is a new multiplier. Almost all the contests have a multiplier. So every red station you work is not only a contact, but it also multiplies all the contacts you've made by another increment of 1. A green is a double multiplier, for example, a new country or a zone in the CQ Worldwide contest. These are really the valuable stations because they're a double mult. And anytime you see a green one on the map, that's a good one to spend some more time on. You might want to spend not so much time on a blue one that's not a mult but is workable for points. So they kind of in order. Blue is, if you got time to work them, work them. Reds are the ones you really want to go through because they'll make your score a lot larger because it multiplies all of your contacts you've made. And then green is a double mult, which makes it even, that's the kind of the cream of the crop there. If you see anything gray on here, it's either a station you've already worked. As I mentioned, you can turn that off so you don't have to worry about working them. I like to keep the non-workable stuff on there, just so I know that they're there. If I run across them, if I'm tuning the band, this little pointer is where your VFO is pointing to. And as you turn the VFO, you'll see this thing go up and down, and you can actually kind of see where these stations are. And these stations will appear at the top of your log at the same time once you're tuned into one of these. Another thing you can do is you can actually click on these and it automatically takes the VFO to that frequency. So this one at 21.015, now there's 2 stations on here. One's a Russian station and one is the LZ3 station. This looks like they're very, very close to each other. And so if I just clicked on this with my radio, it would automatically take my radio to 21.015 and automatically take me to hopefully one of these 2 stations. You can work whichever one you can hear. If you want to, once you click him, if you want to click on S53M in Slovenia, you can click on him and you just literally work your way right down this list and not have to ever touch your VFO. You can operate a contest, never have to touch the VFO knob. And if it's a CW contest, you can actually, I've operated many, many CW contests without ever touching a key. I do it all right from the computer keyboard and using the WinKeyer and the pre-built-in messages. So you still have to be able to receive CW somehow, either through a decoder or through your noggin. But as far as transmitting, you really very rarely do you ever need a CW key in a CW contest. As I mentioned, clicking on the spot takes your transceiver directly. You point, click, and work them. Boy, what could be easier than that? If you hover with the mouse over a spot on that band map, it gives you the following information. It'll give you the exact frequency sent by the spotter, so you can tune your radio there you want, the call sign of the spotter, so you can tell if the guy's on the East Coast, if you're West Coast. Propagation on the East Coast is a lot different than it is on the West Coast, right? Those guys are hearing European stations that we can't hear at all, ever. So if you see a spot that's from an East Coast station, chances are you're not going to be able to hear them. But if it's West Coast station, might be of use to you. Also, the time and minutes since the station was placed. If you've got a spot that's half an hour old, chances are the guy may not still be there, but you can listen for him. and also any comments sent with the spot. For example, if he's loud, and wherever the guy worked, those guys say, "Hey, he's loud." Well, it'll tell you he's loud, so you can get information that comes off the report. Some of the caveats that I mentioned, these band map spots are only about 90% accurate. Don't rely on them as being 100% accurate. If you do find, for example, you'll see a station that's got two different call signs on one spot. And one of them might be, for example, W7VO and W7PO. And where one guy copied me as PO and one guy copied me as VO. And you can actually, if you right click on, once you figure out what the correct call sign is, if you right click on the call that's inaccurate on the band map, you can actually delete it. And brings up a little menu where you can delete the spot, so you're not sitting there looking at it and accidentally come back later and have it still there and think it's a different call. Be careful. This is something that's really easy to do. If you're a general class operator and you click on a spot, make sure that what you're clicking on takes you so you're still within your band limits. One of the big problems that I have here are people that are general class operators, and they'll click on if they're using their call sign, they'll click on something that's in an extra class portion of the band and don't realize it. Or worse than that, they'll be using my call sign in a contest as part of a multi-operator station. They'll click on a station that, for example, the bottom end of the 40-meter phone band is 7.125. They'll see this real juicy station spotted at 7090 and not realize that you'll remember that it's outside of the U.S. allocation for HF. So it's real tempting sometimes to click on stuff that's not within our allotted bandwidth. So just make sure when you click on the spots, you know that they really are workable, either for your license or they're actually U.S. legal. They're stations for us to work legally. The check windows I mentioned, that's the window you can bring up, and for example, bring a call sign in. If you load in Yankee Tango 1 Echo, this tells me he is a known station, but he is also signed. If you've made a mistake and copied it wrong, these are the other possibilities that it could be. So if you click on them and you say, well, he's got another letter here, but I can't quite tell what it is. Well, the closest one to that might be YT1ET, and you can listen to it again and see if you can pull the T out of the noise. And so this comes in really handy if you're trying to figure something out. And what this tells me is you're trying to work YT1A, and YT1A is not a valid call, but these are as close as you can get. Up here's YT1A right here. So this is really handy when you're operating a contest to make sure the station you're working is really a station. And you can still work stations, by the way, that are not in the SuperCheck partial database. A lot of these special stations with special call signs, or new hams that are just getting into it, or a call sign that maybe some guy just traded in as call sign, got a new 1x2 or 2x1 call sign, and it has not operated a lot of contests, may not be in the database. And what will happen is when you log him, it'll log him in yellow on your log. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's a bad call sign. It just means he's not in the database. So anytime you see one that comes in yellow, make sure you've got his call sign correct. You may want to think about it and just listen to him work another guy just to make sure you've got his call sign correct. But as I say, it does not necessarily mean that it's a bad call sign. It just means that it's not a normal contest sign. And by the way, in field day, you guys have operated field day, you're going to get an awful lot of them. Remember, there may be more yellow call signs than there are the ones that are normal contest stations, because field day seems to bring everybody out. Let's see here. So I just talked about that. I talked about that. You can also bring up an info window that will tell you more information about the station. It also will give you how many QSOs you're doing per hour. I don't generally worry about this kind of stuff, but with KH6 loaded on there, it'll tell me what his sunrise and sunset is, what time it is his time, how far he is from where I live. In my case, he's 2,585 miles, or 4,160 kilometers. This is KH6 on the Big Island of Hawaii. He's in zone 31, and he's from my house. He's got a heading of 240 degrees, so I can aim my antenna for 240 degrees, Or long path, you might be at 61 degrees. So you aim to the north, or I aim to the southwest, kind of the northeast or southwest. So very useful information. There's another available window. This is kind of optional. I use this sometimes, but I found it more inaccurate than accurate. It's populated from the band map and gives you a much more detailed information related to your particular contest. What it'll tell you is, based on all the spots that it picks up in the telnet, it'll tell you how many of those are new multipliers or new bands and new modes on each of the bands. So what it'll tell you what other people essentially are working. So say, for example, you're operating a contest at night and or in the early morning, and only 40 meters is open, 20 meters is not open yet. And you'll see that there'll be a lot of stations here that are available either as new multipliers or just as QSOs on 40 meters. There won't be a whole lot on 20. Well, as the East Coast starts warming up and you start getting more of them working European stations, you'll start seeing more of the 20 meter, more activity on 20 meters that'll actually tell you, and if you can use it properly, especially filter the spots properly, this will kind of tell you what is the band you actually want to be on at any one time, whether it be 15 meters, 20 meters, 40 meters, based on how many new multipliers are available to you or new stations to work. I found this useful sometimes, but not terribly, because it really relies on the quality of the spots and who's spotting. I don't really care about a lot of East Coast guys working Europe on 20 meters that I can't hear for another 2 or 3 hours yet, because on the West Coast, we're 3 hours behind where they are, and often they're working people we can never hear because they just got a shorter path. So I find this useful, but if you've got room to bring it up there, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. I mentioned here's the gray line. It'll also tell you where stations are being spotted on here, so you can tell the gray line here. This is a couple hours. Looks like noon is right over Hawaii, so it's probably early in the afternoon our time. This is where we're located up here, and these are some of the spots. And here's where your gray line is, and this is where the magic propagation. Once this is over us. Over here, it's pretty much over Europe, and you get a pretty good path between here and there. So if you know how to use gray line, you can bring the gray line window up. I have this generally on another computer with a separate monitor that just has this one gray line window brought up, and it's another version of N1MM that's not tied to the contest that I just use just for the gray line. Time to set up the monitor screen. And so let's kind of see what we do. So you need to figure out what pop-up windows you want to use for each contest and put them where you want them to be on the monitor screen for the best view. If you're operating non-assisted, you want to bring up the log to log the contest. You want to bring up the multiplier screen, a score summary if you've got room for it. And if you're assisted, you want to add the band map, the check page, open the telnet and then minimize it to keep it out of the way, so you're just looking at the band map. If you're operating 2 or more transmitters, then you're going to need the network status page to say what kind of communications are going on between the stations. And if you're in the RIDI mode, you got to add the digital interface page that gives you the X and Y little screen for the MTTY to be able to decode RIDI. If you're not using a radio that has cat control, don't worry about it. I've got a couple of old radios here that I've used on field day that don't have cat control. So it won't automatically track the frequency that you're on or the band you're on. If you do that, there's no problem. Just enter the frequency on each band change directly into the logging window. So for example, this is what the logging window looks like. And you can, if you're connected to the radio through a cat command, as you change the VFO, this frequency will change. If that doesn't change, that means the cat command is not working. You've got to do some troubleshooting. If you've got a radio that you're not running with cat control, if you want to go to, for example, the 20 meters, just load the frequency you want in here in kilohertz. So you load in 14,250, it automatically puts it into on the 20 meter band. You can go ahead and log, but you got to remember that every time you change bands, you've got to manually go in and do this. If you've got it under cat control, it's automatic. You don't need to worry about it. So here's an example. This is a screen that pretty much how I have it set up every time. You've got the logging part up here. I mentioned all these F commands, right? F1, F2, F3. So if I want to throw my call out there for somebody, I just hit the F3 button on the computer, it'll automatically send it out. This is where the logs go. This is where I put the band map so I can see what's going on, what's being spotted. It also tells me as new stuff comes up here, these will often be all new multipliers, 9K2, an FR5 on Reunion Island, some UA9s in UA9 would be up in Siberia, in Russia, European, Russian, and another UA9 and down at a Venezuelan station down here. So if I just took and clicked on these, it would automatically load the frequency up here. It would automatically take me right to that station. I could listen and work him and load in his send exchange. This happens to be for the CW contest. No, single sideband and what ARRL sideband contest. So you need to roll what their power is, which is one part of the exchange. And then I put the check log over on this side. This is a one that gives you how many countries are currently available and available to you for you to work that have been spotted. Another useful tool for you, and of course the rate one down here, and your score summary down here. And that's kind of how I have these things set up when I'm doing just a one-screen contest. When the contest is over, sit back and enjoy a cool one, right? You've operated either 24 or 48-hour contest. You're pretty worn out. If you go to the file screen and generate Cabrillo file, it'll automatically create the Cabrillo file that you can send into the contest organizers. You want when you do that, you want to open that Cabrillo file up in Notepad, and sometimes you'll goof something up. Just go through and make sure you've got all the exchanges correct, and look for anything that you've completely screwed up. For example, maybe a K0 AA station you logged as KO AA, right? Make sure you got zeros instead of A's, and just look for anything that you've goofed up. You click on generate Cabrillo file, and it'll give you essentially the Cabrillo file, excuse me, in the form of a notepad thing that you can edit. Just double check everything's over here, and then you send that off to the contest organizers to their website, and you're done. You can also do file export ADEF to file. Export ADEF to file, it'll give you an ADEF file. The ADEF file you can automatically send up to for Logbook of the World, or if you're on the QRZ.com logging for their award program, you can automatically load it up to them, and you're done. So is that all there is to this software? No, as complicated as this is, and I'm sure there's a lot of people scratching their heads saying, what the heck's he talking about? We've really just scratched the surface of this pretty powerful software. This actually is one half of a presentation that I gave at CPAC a few years ago, and this is one half of it. There's actually a lot more to learn, but it's more for the more sophisticated contester. They've got a great N1MM manual. Of course, you can download and learn as much about it as you can. And if you have any questions, you can certainly ask people. And above all, get on the air, play with it, learn how to use it. Go to Field Day. Max, do you guys use the N1MM as your software for Field Day?
We don't. We use the other one. Is it N3JFP?
Okay, N3JFP. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, but if you want to learn how to use N1MM, is download it and use it. Right, it's free. I say I've used it here for quite a few years since it came out, and I use it almost exclusively. But once again, it's not a general logging software. It's primarily for contests, and it's so much more powerful even than I've talked about here. It really makes it seamless. Even when you're, for example, I operate multi-operator, so I can have up to 2 other stations on the air from my house at the same time, and I can actually send messages back and forth between the stations using N1MM, and it really makes it nice. And when you're operating in the network mode. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And since everybody's so bewildered, we'll see if there are any questions. See, I knew this was going to happen.
One question I have for you, Mike. You mentioned that you can use WAV files in order to use them like as macros in a voice contest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just need like an external sound card? Or do you need the WinKeyer also?
No, the WinKeyer is only used for CW. And it's primarily, it winds up becoming the CW memory and also sets the speed of what N1MM sends the signal out. You do need an external sound card, I believe, and that would be through, for example, a signal link, which could be the external sound card. I said I use, I don't use a lot of memory stuff for the phone, but if I do, I use the ones that are built into my N1M, into my FT2000, which has 4 voice memories. And I just use the cat commands and click on them and use those.
And so essentially, you're using the memories that are in your radios,
that's
right?
correct. That's correct. That's the easiest thing to do. But the other thing to do is to, load them in Audacity or some a generation program that generates a .wav file, and then just tell the software where to find those files, and you're done.
Nice. Yeah, we do use the WinKeys to set up the computer so that they can key the radio for our contest macros for like field day, winter field day.
Yeah, one thing I can do is I'm going to share my screen one more time here, and we're going to do that and do share, and hopefully you guys can see my. Why do I have a blank screen?
Oh, hit escape to get out of that.
Oh, because my program is done. Okay, hold on a second here. Let me minimize. My escape's not working. Oh, there we go. Now I'm out. All right, now what I want to do is, hold on, let me reshare again. I want to bring N1MM up and just show you a little quick demo. So let me share a screen again and look at the screen. I hope you guys are seeing that. And I'm gonna load up my N1MM software and pretend that I'm going to operate a contest real quick. And hopefully you're seeing it's starting. See that screen, okay, Max?
Yeah.
And during the WPX contest, I use a club call sign called WW7E, and I'm not going to operate. I'm not going to operate in the network mode, so I'm going to turn that one off. And normally I use an FT450. We're just going to turn that off and let it bring it up. So here's the last contest that I did as WW7E. Looks like it was a sideband contest. Current version is 91 days old, so it's telling me you better update the software. And it's telling me a new version is available. Would you like to install now? So I'm going to say go ahead. And it'll turn this off. It'll automatically upload the new software. And hopefully it doesn't take too long. This is where you play the Jeopardy theme song. It should turn this off and then upload the software, and then oh, you know what though? Yeah, it may not want to do that. Anyway, so let me, while it's figuring out what to do, let me just, for example, say we're going to work a station. Say we're working a station of a K2 max, K2 MAX. Oops, there we go. And say this is for field day, and just say you're a 1A station. Cancel. Oh, it just decided to upload the new software. Okay, here we go. So it's going to upload the new software. And I'm just going to tell it to install, and it's done. And now it's going to reload it. You have a screen that comes up, tells you what they've changed. Minimize that. It's going to bring it back again. So what it did was it just uploaded the software, and it's going to bring me right back again to where I was. So let me say we're going to work K2 MAX, and this is, by the way, is set up for field day. And let's say you're a class 1A, and let's say you're in the Oregon section. And when I get done, now I don't have any of the F1 screens on here because I was using a computer. I didn't want to use, we're doing strictly phone. I didn't want to have any of the F1 commands. I wasn't using any voice commands. So I got rid of that line. And the only thing I have in here, and I want to make it simple for people to use. So basically you're going to enter it, and after it's entered, you're going to log it, right? And so they click down here, there you are logged on 21.331.5, 1A Oregon. You're logged by me, and we worked you as WW7E. So worked you on 9/14, 3 months after field day. This is our field day log. And so there you are, you're logged, you're Max, you're in the log. we pulled a native file out and submitted it to Logbook of the World or the QRZ, you'd be there. So let me just bring up a couple of the different, as I mentioned, the score summary is down here. So in field day, we worked 47 stations on 80 meters, 151 on 40, 149 on 20 and 30 on there for a total of 377. And of course, we got a total of 754 QSO points. So here's our little score summary here. I'm not tied to the band map, so let's just see if anybody's out there. But I probably don't have the telnet turn. I don't have the telnet turned on, so that's probably not going to work. But anyway, so you can play with this, and I said you can bring up any of these windows you want and kind of play with them and see what they do. If there are some CW reader programs you can use out there if you want to have it try to decode the CW. I've never used that, but that's certainly available for you. And I said you can also take a look at what your max rates are, when your off times are, when you've turned the start of the contest. A lot of contests will have, for example, you can only work 36 of the 48 hours. It'll tell you when how many hours you've actually taken off, so you can make sure you don't surpass the maximum number of hours that you're able to. So there's a lot of information you can pull off of here. So anyway, I'm going to stop the share now, and once again, I'll open it up for any more questions.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Nick, KI7PPT. Thanks, Mike. Definitely appreciated the concise presentation. As you said, there's another half to it, and I imagine my question delves on that. How does the share, the log share work? You just have a shared drive on your network that all the computers have to be accessed?
No. What it does is it does it through the network function. And what you do is you have to assign one of the stations to be the master. And then all the other ones are slaved off of it, because obviously the times have to match on all the computers.
Right.
And so there'll be one that supplies master time to the other computers. And there's one universal log. So all of the stations are essentially logging on the master computers on its hard drive. And even though the same database is on all of them, but they're continually matched for every QSO. So we've had 3 or 4 going here at the same time on 3 or 4 different computers. And and here's one of the key things about if you're going to do a network situation is that all of the computers have to have the same version of Windows on them. They have to have the same version of N1MM on them, and they all have to have the same country file and supercheck partial files downloaded on them, which means they basically all have to be up to date the same. They don't have to all be up to date, but they have to all 4 be identical in order for everything to synchronize.
That sounds, have you had any glitches mid-contest where maybe the network refuses to allow communications between two?
No. These guys have been doing this a long time. I've got all of my contest computers are all wireless through a wireless router, and they're wireless connections, and I've never had a problem with one dying or locking up and not being able to do anything. It's pretty robust.
And I guess they're what's the term for it? Their security settings have to be open for open communication. I normally operate Macs, so I'm not familiar with what Windows does with its, allowing all computers to communicate with each other.
Well, they have to be on the same network, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? If they're on the same network, they're able to share with each other.
Yeah.
So it's got to be an open network, and probably in the first level, and all there at the same place.
Sounds great.
So yeah, we use it here quite often, and it's sometimes I can have another computer set up just for people that want to come in and they don't want to maybe look over the shoulders of the operators. But we can have another one with a larger screen and only have the log on there, and people can see what we're logging and see who we worked, and bring it up to where it takes up the whole screen on another computer. So I actually have another computer that's networked to the same network that we only use as a visual aid to show people what we're doing. And obviously you can the next stage in amateur radio, of course, is live streaming. where you're live streaming your score to the rest of the world, so people can compare their scores in real time. And that's really the next level of amateur radio contesting, is be able to see what your competitors are doing in a contest while you're operating a contest. And I'm sure this software will be updated, and it'll be a network function that does that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one observation here, Mike. You know, having been, been involved with park field days for the last 40 years or so. I do remember well, and not favorably, having to do dupe sheets and all that. None of what we described here today actually does anything differently. As far as the functions go, from the N3FJP software that we use on field day and have been using for the last several years. I'm not sure that I'd be convinced to change over at this point. What we have works, and unless there's something really radical changes with field day, I don't see any reason to do anything differently from what we've already done. I mean, Parks already paid the fees for the N3FJP, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should change. I'm just telling you what I use, and like I said, you saw in the contesting world, N1MM is by far the most popular contesting software. Now, I also have N3FPJ here too, but I use it as my general logging, rather than paper when I do casual operating, right? You'll hear a DX station on, you'll work them, and you want to have either a paper log, or I use N3FPJ for that. And of course, he's made a lot of changes in that software. He's very good at supporting it. And I worked him a lot in the contests. He's on a lot of contests too. So you got a contester guy that's actually got the software. So I'm not trying to degrade any other software package that's out there. The idea here was to give you guys a flavor for what's available. And obviously, I don't work for the N1MM crew. They don't sell it. It's a freeware, and I have no interest in it other than that's what I happen to use here. So I'll for what it's worth. But thank you for that information there, Leah.
One of the things that I found different about the N1MM software is that it does have all of these individual windows that you can open up. And I think it really lends itself well to how you, Mike, and I'm sure a lot of other people run it. It's just on multiple monitors. And you can resize these windows however big or small you need them. I think that's something very different. And when I first started running N1MM, it kind of made me rethink of how to run the logging software on a computer.
Yeah, and you really learn which screens you really need and where to place them on the screen, so your eye doesn't have to move very far to do something, right? One of the key parts about contesting is to make sure that is to minimize not only movement, right, to minimize fatigue, but also minimize your eye movement. So you want to have everything that you use most common directly in front of you, with it in a common eye view, and then anything you don't have to have access to right away. And all that stuff I put on a separate monitor. That's to the side. I have a couple of I think I have a couple of 19-inch monitors that I use. And for RTTY, by the way, it's almost impossible to do a contest without having two monitors, because your log and your log and the log and the logging part of it at the top and the digital interface window take up a whole screen. And so you don't have any room for all the other band map and everything else that you'd want. All that stuff winds up getting shoved onto a separate screen. Now that's a question for Lee or anybody that's operated the N3FPJ, but what do they use for the RTTY contests? Does it use the same MTTY engine, or how does it handle a RTTY contest?
I've only used it in one contest right at the very beginning when they were doing an interface with the MMTTY, and that was a real zoo to work with.
Yeah, it's a much more seamless with, I don't know, I use it all the time. The next big contest coming up is I think the CQ Worldwide CW comes up I believe in September. And
Secure World War would be right
yes,
either the end of September or the beginning of October.
Right. So that's the first one. I'm a member of the Willamette Valley DX Club, as many of you guys know, and we've got a contest that we do within all the other DX clubs that are in the Northwest, the Western Washington Club, the Seattle, or excuse me, the Orca Club up in Vancouver, and also the Idaho DX Club and the Spokane DX Club, where we have a contest between all the contest clubs, and we aggregate everybody's score. And at the end of the year, we have a big giant trophy that we pass out to the club that's garnered the most amount of points. And so we have 10 contests that we do that everybody in the club does. And the first one I believe coming up is the one that is that first RIDI contest. So anyway, it's all a lot of fun. Anyway, if there's no more questions, Max, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, I actually have one more question. You talked earlier about overlays. Can you briefly describe what those are?
Oh, the overlays. For example, in a CQ, in a lot of the CQ contests, they'll have an overlay. When you enter, you can enter as a single operator, but you can also enter what's called an overlay category, which may be that you're a rookie, been licensed less than 3 years, or another overlay is that you're using a tri-bander and wires, right? You're not using a bunch of stacked Yagis on multiple towers. You've got a tri-bander and you've got wires for the low bands. And you can actually, in the CQ contest, you can enter a separate overlay and you're judged and scored based on you having one of these overlay categories. So for example, if you're a guy with just a single tri-bander, maybe a single tower with a tri-bander and some wires on it, you're not competing against a guy with you know, a separate 120-foot tower in each band with stacked mono banders on it, right? You're kind of you're competing against the other people that are in your overlay. And so they say particularly the CQ contests, CQ Worldwide, CQ WPX, et cetera, have these overlay categories you can enter.
So are these like the overlays, are they files that you download for that particular contest?
No. They're just you're entering an overlay category. So your category would be single operator, high power, tri-bander and wires.
And so
tri-bander and wires.
Okay, that makes sense. If there's a specific contest, like because N3 FJP doesn't necessarily make templates or contest logs for all contests, but
anything major they do.
Yeah. But are there contests that you have to download information to N1MM, or
I never have, because they're pretty much all there. They're constantly updating this thing as contests change rules. They're constantly providing updates. And by the way, I'm on the ARRL, as I mentioned, on the Program and Services Committee, which handles all the ARRL contests. And anytime we make a rule change, we automatically notify all of the N3 FPJ and all the other contest software manufacturers and let them know what the changes are, so they can, if there's a change in scoring, we tell them what changes to do. They'll change the software and provide a new update. And so the same thing's happening when new contests come out. One of the things that's happening, if anybody here has operated the ARRL RIDI Roundup contest, anybody operated that contest before?
I have.
Okay, in the last few years, there's been a lot more increased activity of FTX, you know, the FT4 and FT8 mixing with the RIDI. And we're actually, the ARRL is actually in the process right now of making the RIDI Roundup contest a RIDI only contest, and then having a new contest called the Digital Derby. And that may not be what it winds up being called, but it's going to be a new contest for only the FT8 and FT4 modes, and separate those two contests out. And so we have to work with the contest software manufacturers to make sure that they are aware of all the rules of the contest and how to score it. And by the way, the new FTX, the FT4, FT8 contest will not only be where you are, it's going to be how far are you from the station that you're working. So the contest software is going to have to know the grid square for both stations, so it can calculate the distance between those two stations and that becomes part of the score. So you not only want to work a number of stations in a number of states, but you want to work people that are far away as well in order to increase your score. So they're adding a little bit more of a level of complexity to that version of the new digital derby contest.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for Mike before we wrap up? Oh, cool. Well, Mike, thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation, just like I predicted. I appreciate that.
And you new guys, if you have questions about contesting and software and whatnot, and I'm sure this buzzed over perhaps a lot of the new people's heads. This is a very good club for Elmering people, and there's a lot of people here that know probably more about it than I do. And we'd be glad to help you guys out and get you involved. For me, contesting is really one of my favorite parts of amateur radio, where you can be in a contest and you can work people all over the world. And in a 2-day contest, you get to work people all over the world twice. I don't think there's any other thing you can do where you can, there's literally nothing you can do in the world except a radio contest where you get to talk to people all over the world twice in a 48 hours. Absolutely amazing. An amazing thing to do, and of course great for international goodwill, and I think it's one of the best things you can do in amateur radio.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. So I do want to mention that we do record the main presentation parts of our meetings, and we post them in about 48 hours to our YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube and type in Portland Amateur Radio Club, we're the first channel that comes up. We have two subcategories, I guess. One is our park monthly meetings, where the presentations like this go, and the other one is our Beginningham Radio series. And those are the meetings that happen every Thursday night. Those are posted up there about 2 days after the Thursday night meeting. So this particular meeting, I think, would be great if you are considering setting up N1MM Plus. You may want to just review the presentation again, because Mike went over a lot of great settings and all the different windows that you might want to use. So thank you very much for that. One more bit of news. So our October meeting, we're going to have Clint Bradford, K6 LCS. He's going to be talking about how to work amateur satellites with your with your handy talkie. And you can see him in the lower right-hand corner. He has an Arrow antenna and a little handheld radio, and he's working one of the FM satellite radios. He's the AMSAT ambassador, or one of the AMSAT ambassadors, and an ARRL instructor. So that'll be coming up next month. You can go to the website and sign up on the front page. We'll also send out an email about this upcoming meeting, and you can sign up that way too. And finally, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to email me, max@nultra.com, or you can email the email that's at the bottom of our w7lt.org website. We'll take any comments, questions, suggestions, ways to make the meeting better. We are looking for ways to meet back in person when it's a little bit safer. We'll probably keep the Zoom aspect of the meeting. So for those of you who are out of state or out of the city area of Portland, or for those of you who, like myself, who just love the convenience of jumping on Zoom and not in my car for 45 minutes, we'll still be able to meet in person, or not in person, but online that way. We're kind of experimenting with ways to do it. I attended a club meeting yesterday on the Zoom portion of it, just to learn like how other clubs are doing that. If you have any suggestions on speakers or topics that you would like, please let me know, because we're always looking for great speakers like Mike, or great topics like contesting or anything else that you might be interested in.